Bichara Supply Chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Bichara Supply Chain. My guest today is Chris Lauchner, Executive Director of Integrated Business Planning at Johnson Controls, and he's based in the US. Hi, Chris. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. All right. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about how sales and operation planning brings the agility to the organizations. But before we get started, can you please brief a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So I live near Atlanta, Georgia, which is on the eastern side, southeastern side of the United States. Although Johnson Controls is headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is in the center northern part of the United States. Johnson Controls is one of the largest companies in the world to bring automation to buildings. So if you think about heating and air conditioning, security, fire detection, fire suppression, the air handling units, all the things that go into making a building operate. And that's where Johnson Controls fits in. I joined Johnson Controls just last summer in the beginning of July as the Executive Director for Integrated Business Planning. And underneath me, I've got three major groups. I have one focused on supply chain planning, which includes demand and supply, materials control, the Integrated Business Planning, which many of you may think of as SNOP, and that's what had been implemented at Johnson Controls in the past. But I'll talk a little bit more about why we changed that to Integrated Business Planning in a bit. And then lastly, my third pillar of work is business intelligence, business analytics. So prior to coming to Johnson Controls, I was previously the global director for SNOP and demand planning at Kimberly-Clark Corporation, based out of Atlanta. That's why I'm living down here. Before that, I was a global director of supply chain optimization with Coca-Cola Company from about 2007 onward, and spent many years traveling the globe, working with our various bottlers around the world to improve their operations in planning and logistics. And before that, I was a chief operating officer of a software company that made demand and supply planning software for the beverage industry. So a very background primarily in planning the last 25 years. Before that, I had 10 years of operations inside of plants with the Scott Paper Company. I did procurement, quality, logistics, manufacturing, environmental science, a bunch of different things to start my career. But I'm happy to be here now. I love the area of planning and integrated business planning, so looking forward to talking about it some more.
Okay, Chris. Nowadays, organizations are becoming more global, right? And with the rising complexity, volatility, uncertainty, and also margin pressure. So could you please share some of the supply chain challenges of the organization, and how does the SNOP play a critical success factor that encounter this challenge?
Sure, and I love the fact that you brought VUCA into the conversation, because we most definitely are suffering more and more of that during this COVID crisis.
Yeah.
I don't know if every company is feeling the same, but we saw a definite decline in business May and June of last year. But since that time, it's like somebody took and punctured a hole in the dam, and our volume has just been skyrocketing across many parts of the business. Not all of them. Some of them are still depressed, but it's much more volatile, uncertain. Lots of change happening. And so our role of SNOP has become even more critical. And thank goodness that we had something to start with. At the initiation of the COVID crisis, SNOE, the weekly process of executing the plan that you put in place became absolutely imperative and something that all the leadership was looking how to use best to operate the business.
Yeah.
But I emphasize with them that you can't just use that during times of crisis. That should be your everyday process. You have a monthly cycle, which we run the SNOP cycle as part of our bigger integrated business planning. And then we have a weekly and even sometimes daily sales and operations execution, the SNOE step to validate how we're tracking against that plan. So one of the reasons when I came to Johnson Controls that I switched from SNOP to integrated business planning is because I saw that while they had demand and supply and executive SNOP meetings in most of our different business units, it really was not achieving the end goal, which is to ensure that the business is meeting its business plan. Is it achieving the revenue? Is it getting the right profitability? Is it enabling itself to keep the margin up? Is it progressing into the future with confidence? And so we expanded SNOP to integrated business planning to really drive ownership from being viewed as something that the supply chain owns it to being a process that's run by the business. And so one of the things I would say to you is that if you really want to be successful in this process, you've got to get your general managers to own the process. They need to understand how this is a benefit to them, how it's going to help them meet their business requirements, their metrics, such as revenue and profitability, margin, while being efficient and effective on the supply chain side. So it's extremely critical. It's something that's even more and more critical as we move forward. If you haven't started, get started now and work with your general managers, work on getting them to understand the importance of portfolio management. As I talk to general managers around the globe who are successful, I find that those that do the best job are those that understand their portfolio and manage their portfolio very actively to ensure that whatever they're selling is making them money. They get rid of the things that are not making money and they keep the things that are making money, and they invest in those things that maybe it has low volume but high margins. So how can I increase the volume on that? Or items that have low margin but high volume, how can I increase the margin? So there's lots of ways to help improve the business, and the integrated business planning process is a critical step in that whole process.
Let's move to another question, Chris. In relation to SNOP, what does it mean, the organizational agility?
So for me, agility means that you have the ability to respond to the changes that occur in the business with efficiency and effectiveness. We are forced every single day to adapt to changes that occur in this VUCA world. Your demand plan is not going to be 100% accurate. So how are you making the rest of your business adaptable to the change that's going to come? And everyone is adjusting, right? You're constantly seeing the changes in demand, the changes in supply, the changes in material availability, the different demands coming in from your customers. So everybody's trying to get to the highest level of customer service, but the question is, how well are you doing it in terms of efficiency and effectiveness? Meaning, can you do it in a way that you can retain your margin, keep the revenue, and stay profitable? So being agile means you're doing it in a way that you efficiently change over in the operation, you effectively adapt to the sales changes, and you do it in a way that enables you to meet your business plan, keeping up your revenue, keeping up your profitability, keeping that margin.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay, so this probably would be one of a very important question. How does the NSOP bring agility to these organizations?
Several different ways. So a good, effective integrated business planning process is going to streamline the flow of information through the organization. And what do I mean by that? Many times, if you step into an organization, you're going to find that if you stand in the shoes of the general manager, whoever's running the business, they are going to be receiving information from several different sources. They might get information through the SNOP process that comes up maybe through the supply chain. They have their finance leaders giving them information regarding, revenue and tax and margin. And who knows, maybe there are a forecast that's coming from the forecast or the finance team.
Yeah.
Additionally, the sales organization is probably coming to them daily or weekly saying, here's what we're doing and here's how we're changing sales and so on. So these separate streams of information come into the leadership and they have to make decisions. And they do this as best they can. But the SNOP process inside of the bigger integrated business planning process should be designed to bring these all together into one flow of information. You should not have your finance team generating their own forecasts. Those forecasts should be coming through the SNOP process and being validated by the finance organization. Okay, are these meeting the requirements of the business and how do we make adjustments to them? But it's one set of forecasts. The supply chain should not also be operating something separately from the sales organization. Those two need to work together to come up with one plan. The same thing would be for your product managers and your marketing teams. However the flow of information comes in about the portfolio, that information needs to flow through the SNOP process and on up into your management business review with your general managers and enable one stream of information. The way would be enabling that agility through SNOE that I talked about before. You have to ensure that not only do you make a plan on a monthly basis, and typically it's monthly. I say monthly because it's typically most companies operate on a calendar month or on a period. But inside of those periods, inside of those months, how are you adapting to those changes that I talked about before? So you have to have a very effective and efficient SNOE process that's responding every single day to the changes that occur to keep you on track. And then finally, ensuring that portfolio management I spoke about before, absolutely a critical funnel into the whole process. We have to ensure that the general manager understands and is really driving the optimization of the portfolio. And that's what will help enable the rest of the organization to operate efficiently and effectively.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay, Chris, could you also share some success story of how did you successfully improve the overall company performance by driving the SNOP process?
Sure. I'll start, maybe I'll give you a couple examples from the different companies. With the Coca-Cola Company, we created end-to-end centers of operational excellence across the globe. For example, we built one in Brazil, one in Germany, India, the Philippines, and China with our various bottlers. And the whole purpose was to ensure that from a supply chain perspective, all of the functions were working together. So when you have the planning group trying to lead the organization and drive and tell the operations what to produce, what to ship, when to do it, how much to do, all of those were linked together in one stream. And how do you do that most effectively? You have to first start with the metrics. You have to make sure that the metrics for each of these functions are not driving them to optimize themselves only, while sub-optimizing the totality. So the first thing we did was to get all the groups together and say, okay, these are your tactical operational metrics, but these set of metrics up here are how we're going to measure the effectiveness of the supply chain. That is all about meeting the plan. So when the planning group says, here's what we need to make, here's what we need to ship, here's how much to do and when, the rest of the organization's job is to do it according to that plan. Mm-hmm. And so a big success would be in the Coca-Cola business was bringing that all together as one operating entity inside of the SNOP process. Then at Kimberly-Clark, when I was implementing there, I really started to realize how we had to shift from thinking of SNOP as something that fits only in the supply chain. I had seen this a lot at Coca-Cola, but I wasn't as successful in making it happen. But at Kimberly-Clark, I was able to get all the way up to the CEO and all the presidents to get on board and understand that we needed to drive this from a general management perspective. So we got general managers on board. And that is a key focus. You first educate your general managers for them to understand what it is that they're supposed to do. What is their role? What are their responsibilities? What are the roles and responsibilities of all the other functions in this process? And make sure that they understand what their metrics are. you fit the rest of the metrics underneath to drive those up. And however you're measuring your performance of your SNOP process, the business metrics need to take the lion's share of the focus. So it's not just about supply chain efficiency, but it's how well are you managing the portfolio? How well is sales at managing their business? Same thing with finance, and then all the way up to the general manager. Mm-hmm. And then here at Johnson Control, that's exactly what we're doing. We are rolling out 2 full IBP processes in 2 of our 16 different business units this year. And then the following years, we'll be expanding to the other ones. So that's 5 major steps supported by SNOE, all coming together to drive the business. And as I mentioned before, I can't express enough how important it is that you focus on portfolio management. If the general manager allows the portfolio to be expanded without regard to the profitability of a particular brand or a family of SKUs, it will eventually drag down the entire business. So their role has got to be the gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. So if they open that floodgate at the front just to drive up revenue, you will most likely be suffering the consequence of this for years and years and years. You'll have products that drag you down from a supply chain effectiveness and efficiency perspective. Your sales organizations will get diluted. They won't know what to focus on. They'll have too many things trying to sell. Your marketing team will be scrambling to try to figure out how do I prop up all these different things. So it becomes, a very difficult task to manage all these. So I highly stress with my general managers to really focus on ensuring that the portfolio is working for them and be very active and engaged with the portfolio review. The very first step, whether you do it monthly or quarterly, whatever it is, you ensure that that portfolio is working for the business. And then secondly, that the general manager really owns the process. Don't think of this as something supply chain does. Think of it as your process that you run the business with, and that's how you'll be successful in the end. And that's exactly how we're driving it here at Johnson Controls.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so actually, I still have a couple of questions, Chris, but we are running out of time. So thank you so much for joining us today at Bicara Supply Chain, Chris. And another question, if any of our listeners would like to get in touch with you directly, what would be the best way?
I think LinkedIn is the best way. I love that application. Okay. It's such a fantastic way for folks around the world to stay in touch across the business world. So very happy to link with anyone and message back and forth through LinkedIn.
Okay, wonderful. All right, Chris, so thank you so much for today and take care. Bye for now.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
At Bicara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bicara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicharasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.